our morning 2. Good morning. Got my coffee. My coffee and my epoxy, don't mix them up. I'm just joking. Anyway, so we're day 2 and I let this set overnight and everything is hard because I use that 1-to-1 epoxy, so everything is set up and hard in here. Nothing shifted at all, so that's good. And over here I've got my liquid glass left over from the desk that I made Buddy, and I just did a 2-to-1 mix with this, which is what it calls for, 2-to-1. And this liquid glass deep pour, you can pour 2 to 4 inches thick with this one. This one's not even going to be 2 inches. It's going to be like maybe 3/4 of an inch. It'll still work perfectly fine though. That basically just tells you the suggested thickness for that epoxy, just in case, because oftentimes people want to like pour very, very thick, or like if they're doing castings for, I don't know, pyramids or different things that they're making, sometimes you can pour it too thick and it will cure too fast and it heat up and then crack. So there's a limit on how thick you can pour the epoxy. If you can kind of tell, I've already kind of mixed it, but this is kind of streaky in here, if you can see some of the streaks. And that's how you know that it's not completely mixed yet. I've set a timer to mix this for 4 minutes, and then I'm going to transfer it to a new container and continue to mix it again for another 2 minutes. This one you can use a hand blender, or not a hand blender, but like a stick blender or a silicone paddle to mix this, but because I'm just using a small container, that would make a big mess, so I'm just hand mixing this one. Oh, there's my timer. So anyway, I just want to show you some of those light streaks that were in this as I was mixing it, so you can see the difference between the hardener and the resin kind of combining. And you can kind of still see some of them in there as I'm scraping the sides and the bottom. And now I'm just going to transfer it to a new one, and then we'll pour it in the butcher block and see how far this amount gets me. And I'll show you, or I'll try to anyway, show you the importance of putting it in a new container. I just dumped this into a new container to mix it, and there's still streaks. So what I thought was a clear mix in the other container, when I poured it in here, additional epoxy that was, you know, stuck to the bottom or the sides of that other container that wasn't completely mixed in, when I poured it into this new container, it was apparent that I hadn't mixed it completely and thoroughly. So that's why you want to transfer it to a new container and continue to mix it, just to get it fully incorporated. I'm about to pour this epoxy into the grooves of the table, and we'll see how far it gets me. Now, I did not tint this at all. It's just a clear pour. And you'll notice, if you did watch my table that I made for Buddy, that I did not build a form for this one. I didn't build like a mold, because essentially the butcher block itself is the mold that I'm pouring inside of. I will elevate this at one point and do a clear coat pour over it and let it kind of fall off the edges. But right now I don't need to do that because I'm not to that point yet. Okay, well, it didn't, it got a good amount in there, but I'm probably gonna need to do maybe another half of one of these to completely fill this, so where it covers the tops of the bowls and everything. So it got a good amount, but I'm still needed to pour a little bit more, maybe like 1/4 of an inch more. And I'm just gonna slowly pour this in here with the other. So I just want to give you guys a look at what it looks like now that I have the deep pour. So you can see there are a little bit of the edges around the bowls that didn't completely cover with the deep pour, but when I put my clear coat on top, that'll fill those in. But this is it. And if you're wondering again what everything was that I used in the table, I'll start over here. We've got bay leaf, crushed red chili flakes, lavender petals, that was orange peel, dehydrated orange peel, pepitas, that was flaxseed, I think, parsley, rose petals, that was allspice, Tabasco peppers, eucalyptus, clove. This is blue, or also known as purple, coneflower petals, black beans from our garden, mulling spices, so that's like a bunch of different spices with cloves, cinnamon, nutmeg. This was a loose leaf raspberry tea mix. This is chamomile flower. This is oregano. This is black peppercorns, pink Himalayan salt, crushed dried basil, also from the garden. This is a black loose leaf tea with lavender. This is poppy seeds, and this is quinoa. So different grains and seeds and spices, flowers, all the dried things to make a really neat table or tray. I'm gonna start sanding this again, just like I did with Buddy's desk, from the lowest grit to the highest grit, and then we will clear coat it. And you might be wondering why can't I just put the clear coat on top of this and not sand it at all? And you really need to sand it in order to get that bond, because after it's cured for so many days, that chemical reaction to have another layer bond to the previous layer diminishes. So we need to sand it so that next layer can really adhere well to the final product. So let's get to sanding. All right, we scuffed it up pretty good. Now I'm just gonna work my way up. All right, so I've worked my way up to my wet dry sand. This is a 2000 grit sandpaper, and I just put a little bit of water here down on the board where you can kind of see how it's the original sandpaper, and then plus the water on top of it, how it kind of clears up. So I'm just gonna take this water and move it around and sand it real good, sand it real fine, clean it all off, and then let it dry out, and then we'll get ready for the top coat pour. We are about to do our final pour. Now I hope I have enough. I've got, let's see, almost half of a bottle, I don't know, of this and that. So I'm hoping that that will be enough to do the final pour on top. There are some areas that were a little bit lower than the bowl when I did the deep pour, so we'll see if it coats the whole thing. My goal is to coat the whole thing and then have some over pour, and I've elevated it on the bottom with just a random plastic lid I found so that it can pour over on the sides and have the whole thing coated. That's my hope, is that I have enough to do that. And if I don't, then I'm gonna have to go out and get another one of those to finish it. But let's see if this will make it stretch. Get you a little bit of a closer view so you can see that there are some bubbles after that top pour. And I'm just gonna come through with my heat gun and pop all of those. Pop the air bubbles. Now some can still develop after settlement, so I'll just keep an eye on it and come back and do my heat gun on it again. But this is after the sanding and then the final pour, and as you can see, it just clears right up. And I'm just gonna let this cure and sit. And because it's the tabletop or the final coat, it has a faster cure time, so this should cure by later today. It should set up, depending on if I can get the room to warm up. But yeah, it should be good to go to put handles on at least by tomorrow. Hey everyone, back again with my tray. It is a cold January day where I think we're under like a hard freeze warning right now with freezing rain. But I'm in the shop where it's nice and toasty, and I am working on trying to finalize my tray with all the little spice, you know what I'm talking about. And I have flipped it over on its backside, and I scraped off all the little hardened bubbles that from when I did the initial pour on top, the bubbles that kind of drip down, the drip bubbles. Once that cured, I scraped them off with a little razor blade, and then I did basically a final pour on the back so that the back looks just as nice as the front. So this is what it's looking like. Nice and shiny. And the other day I purchased, because I think I talked about this, but because this table is so heavy, and if it's going to be used as some sort of serving tray, picking it up from the bottom or sliding it off the side of your counter to carry it would be more difficult than it needs to be. So I went to Home Depot and I found these drawer pulls, cabinet pulls. And so I'm going to use them as basically handles on each side. Well, not on this side of it, but just as an example of the tray. So I'll center them on each side, and then that way you can stick your fingers underneath and lift it up easier that way. So once this backside cures and hardens, I'm going to mark where I want this on the other end, drill some holes, and then probably countersink the backside so where these aren't going to be scraping your table. So I basically want to create a deeper hole initially so that the screw can seat in nicely to the wood and it's not going to be sticking out screws on the backside. So I'll countersink those down in there, and then that way we can connect to the handle on the other side of it. So that's the next step, and that's the next plan. Just to make sure. Okay. Okay. So this is where this one's gonna go. Right there. It's not completely straight, but like that. Now let's flip this over. So I went ahead off camera and drilled the other two holes just to get that done. I wanted to get that black trash bag out of the way because when I flip this over, I don't want any chance of anything underneath it scratching the newly poured surface. So I made sure this was clean, and I flipped it over, and now I'm going to use my drill bit, my countersink drill bit. Now, this is kind of not a typical because it's a little bit of a graduated point, but this is a drill bit, but then down here, this wider base is also a drill bit. This drill bit down here is made to where the screw head can sink down into the wood. See this pan head screw? They call it a pan head because it looks like an upside down pan. Anyway, so that fatter bit will carve out just enough to where this bottom piece will slide down into a narrow hole, and then this pan head part will have just a little bit carved out at the base of this drill bit. Okay, so where it can sit down flush within the wood and not stick out the bottom, you know, stick out and scratch or whatever. Just makes it look nicer. All right, so you see how it's got a little bit of a divot down there so that when I put this in here, it'll sink down in there. That's what we want. Now let's talk about something else that we really need this countersink drill bit for. So I have to go deeper than this, and I'll tell you why. This screw that came with my kit, let's just say that this depth is where I stopped at, right here. It is not going to reach the handle. So what that means is I need to continue to drill down until this sticks out enough that it will catch onto my handle. Okay? So we need to go down a little bit more. Excuse my buddy's getting coffee in the background, but we now have our 2 screws that are, well, this one looks like it's not poked through, but it is. Let me just, here we go. Say hello.
Hello.
We've countersunk them in the back. Excuse me, buddy. So we've got those 2 holes that are, the screws are set down there. Now, what I'll probably do after this is done is come back and put a dowel plug in these so that they're just not open. I'll glue one of those little dowels and plug it and then cut off the excess that sticks out. I'll show you, if I decide to do that, I'll show you what that looks like. But for now, our screws are here, and let's go ahead and attach the handles. I was just having Buddy in here look at it because I haven't shown it to you yet, but the handles are on. Maybe Buddy can show it to you.
Okay, I'm gonna display it.
Yeah, display that. Display.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Check it out. And there's the handles right there.
Mm-hmm.
And
the back side? Oh yeah.
butcher block.
Mm-hmm. So I was saying the back side with the holes, I'm gonna put the little dowels in them.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
To plug it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just saw it off.
This is the coolest charcuterie board I've ever seen. Like literally not a lie, this is the coolest one I've ever seen.
Yeah.
We just need to put some food on it now.
Yeah. There are some imperfections.
You gotta stop focusing on the imperfections.
But I'm over it. I've accepted it.
Yeah.
No, it's good.
It's like a Texans playoff win. There's some imperfections, but it's beautiful.
A win is a win.
It's beautiful at the end.
So true. I love that analogy. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, well, I am going to call this not done, but I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the dowels next, and then I'll wrap up the video.
Cool.
Also, back to countersink bits. If you don't have a countersink bit, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So what you could do is you could get your drill bit set and drill a smaller hole, like the diameter of the actual screw, and then the screw top, you just go a little bit wider at the top of the hole with a different size drill bit and drill out a little bit down into basically your pilot hole, and it will give you a sink base for the top of your screw. So if you don't have the right one or a technical countersink, sorry, I'm losing my mind here, then you can make your own. It's just a couple extra steps. These are the Same dowels that I used for your table that I made. I came with 4 different sizes.
Where'd you find them? In the barn?
Yeah, out there by your shop. So I set them on the counter.
It's chewed up.
Yeah, kind of.
Well, it's a good thing you found them, because if you would have lost them and you would have been upset, you would have had irritable dowel syndrome.
Irritable dowel syndrome? I would have been irritable. Wow. Okay, so now that we've got the dad joke out of the way. I have to find out which size is going to fit in, which peg is going to fit in the round hole. And I'm thinking it's this one, which is the 3/8. Now, real quick, it's really important that when you flip this over or whatever you're working with, go ahead and take another second to tighten down these screws that are holding in your handles, because once these dowels go in there, if your handles start to loosen or wiggle, there's no way to tighten this screw back down unless you drill out these dowels. It'll be a mess. So I went back through with a flathead screwdriver because it has the option for flat or Phillips. I tightened them down with the Phillips, and I came back with the flathead, and I just gave them another good crank. I probably got another complete turn out of all of them doing that. So just hand tighten them, don't use a drill, and then put your dowel in. I'm just going to put a little bit of a squirt down in there. You don't have to do this part, but I'm going to. Have a little bit of a paintbrush or find a stick or something, and I'm just going to rub it all around in there on all the sides. I love having craft paintbrushes. Like, they're super cheap. I don't know, you pay like $2 at the Dollar General and you can get like 20 of these. They just come in handy for so many things. All right, now I'm going to take my little dowel and I'm just going to put a bead on it on the edge and take my finger and just rub it around, make sure that the glue gets on all the little ridges. I'm gonna finger push it in there for now, but I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna tap it down. And do the same for the other. Now they do make decorative dowels or decorative hole plugs. So like you could like some wood makers will find these specialty wood pieces where, like for example, let's say this is a light birch, and they want a mahogany or cherry accent. So they'll find different colors to kind of make it a more decorative piece. I don't really mind that these are the same color as my board because the bottom of the board is not the showpiece, right? Maybe if it was a piece of furniture where you could see the edges well or something, but this is the bottom. I'm not concerned about it. Okay, so now we just need to kind of cleaned up the glue that pushed out around. I just wiped it off with a towel. And then I'm going to come back with my undercut saw and just try to get as close as I can to the base and cut these off. And I'm going to come back after that and put just a little touch of epoxy on top of both of those just to seal it and make it look nice. So those are the next steps, but right now I'm gonna let this set up and dry for, I don't know, 30 minutes to an hour. Okay, today is the last day. Oh, it's chilly in here today. To work on this project. I let this sit yesterday. I know I said I could let it sit for 30 minutes or so, but got caught up on some other things, so I let this sit overnight. And now I'm about to cut these little dowel rods off. I have an undercut saw. You can also use like a hand saw. So use what you have. I'm gonna use this because it's flat and it should make a pretty clean cut. I'm gonna try to get as close to the bottom of this tray as I can without damaging it too much. So if I have a little bit of excess wood on top, I'll just sand it lightly until I feel like it's flush. Okay, that took no time at all. And I cannot wait to do our adult lunchable charcuterie dinner, me and Buddy, on this new board. We've already talked about it and we're excited to do it. So, thanks for hanging out with me today in the past several days on this project, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.
On the Denman Homestead, where the sun sets golden in the west, we live in harmony with nature, doing what we love best. From the garden to the kitchen, and the bees inside their hive. On the Denman Homestead, come along and plant, nourish, thrive.